Information day. So the meeting between Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky nearly turned blues in the White House. I'm not the one saying. According to one professor in the University of Helsinki, the meeting between Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky was basically a shouting match. He labeled it a shouting match. So Trump was shouting Zelensky like a baby. He told Zelensky that you have to give up your territory to the Russians or Ukraine will fail to exist. I hope you guys remember yesterday's update. You heard from Zelensky himself. Zelensky said Donald Trump didn't say yes or no regarding the transfer of Tomahawk missile system to Ukraine. Well, according to multiple sources coming out today, Zelensky is lying. I told you guys that in between the media houses and Zelensky, one is lying. Now, all the media houses in this world can be wrong. According to Reuters, according to CNN, according to Financial Times, they are all reporting the same thing. So all of them claim that Trump made it clear that America is not going to give this Tomahawk missile systems to the Ukrainians. Let's analyze Financial Times report. So according to Financial Times, Donald Trump told Zelensky that Ukraine should hand over the whole of Donbass or get destroyed completely by the Russians. Let's analyze this critically. It makes sense to me what Trump is saying. By the way, it was Vladimir Putin who suggested this back in the Alaska summit. It makes sense to me because the ethnic Russians don't like the Ukrainians and the Donbass are ethnic Russians. Now, in exchange, Putin is also ready to give some territories, which are mainly ethnic Ukrainian speakers, majority of them to the Ukrainians. I hope you guys remember in the beginning of the war, we were told that Putin is trying to take over the whole of Ukraine. This is not true. Completely. I started rebutting this particular statement right from the beginning of the war because Putin trying to take over the whole of Ukraine will be a liability for Putin because the ethnic Ukrainians don't like the Russians and vice versa. The ethnic Russians don't also like the Ukrainians. You understand? If we are to even go back into history, for example, Second World War, it is true that the Ukrainians supported the Soviet Union or the USSR to fight against the Germans. But what I don't tell you is those who supported the ethnic Russians or the USSR were the ethnic Ukrainians speaking, the ethnic Russian speaking side of Ukraine. Majority of the ethnic Russian speaking side of Ukraine supported the USSR mainly. But the ethnic Ukrainian speaking side, most of them decided to support Stepan Bandera. Most of them supported the Nazis to fight against the Soviet Union. In fact, when the Nazis invaded Russia, ethnic Ukrainians were praising them. Are you aware of that? This is a history for another day. But, in fact, at a point, they were praising them when they first entered into Russia. So, with this particular historical evidence, clearly, I don't believe that Putin have any interest in taking over the whole of Ukraine. It doesn't make sense to me. YouTube is completely different from TikTok and Facebook. This is one of the most difficult platforms to manage. So whether we will succeed on YouTube here or not, it depends on you guys. So hitting on the like button is very, very important. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe. By the way, during Donald Trump interview with Fox News, well, what Donald Trump said, if you're smart, you understand. According to Donald Trump, America is running low on missiles and America cannot give all their missiles to the Ukrainians. So America need these weapons to protect themselves. So what does this mean? Clearly, he's trying to tell the Ukrainians that no, we are not going to give you the Tomahawk missile system. And this also confirms what I've been telling you guys on this platform about American missiles running low. I was 100% right from day one. Remember, we've reported on this platform multiple times that when you look at American production, it is absolutely low compared to Russia. Russia production exceed America 100%. And Donald Trump confirms this during his interview with Fox News. I was 100% right from day one. The reason for this is simple. American military-industrial complex belongs to private entities, whilst the Russians, it belongs to a state. And this goes back to the Soviet Union era. I've told you guys before. I don't want to go deep into it, but for the sake of those who haven't watched my previous videos, let me add this. It runs back to the Soviet Union era after the Russians defeated the Nazis. They promised never to allow what the Nazis did to them to happen again, because Stalin got the intelligence that the Germans were going to invade Russia. But Russia never prepared ahead of time. Stalin refused to believe that the Germans were going to invade the Russians. So he didn't prepare. So the Soviets were not prepared when the Nazis invaded them. And that is why the Russians lost over 27 million people during Second World War. Most of these people, although it is the whole of the Soviet Union, but most of these people are Russians. Most of those who died are Russians. 27 million. Although they won, but it came at an expensive, or it came with an expensive price. So the Russians promised never to allow this happen again. So they produced a lot of weapons ahead of time. The Russians produced spare parts ahead of time. So, for example, if the Russians want to assemble a T-72 tank or T-90 tank, what they do is they just put the parts together. That is what they do. But in the case of America, it's different, unless they are given contract. And most of these contracts that these American military contractors get, normally these are small wars. So they don't really have a big industry to produce a lot of weapons to fight against a superpower. They don't have. That is the fact. America has never had this. Remember, in World War I, the war was almost over before America joined the war. In World War II, remember, America was not part of the war. They decided to join the war at the middle or at the end of the war. It was not intentional. The reason was they couldn't join the war at the beginning because they had no weapons to join the war in the beginning. So they had to wait for about 2, almost 3 years before they joined the war. That is the fact. And the fact still remains the same. That fighting with Russia today, America don't have the weapons to fight against the Russians. So that is why Donald Trump, I love Trump because he's a realist, right? He's a realist. He has instructed American defense contractors to produce more weapons. He is not like the other guys who come out to bluff. We have weapons, but in reality you don't have. When you look at the current war, you can see that the Russians, in terms of firepower, it is times 10. Whatever the Russians fire at the peak of the war, somewhere in 2023, the Russians were firing times 10 of whatever the Ukrainians were firing, because Ukrainians were lacking weapons. And that is the results that we are now seeing. Yes, Ukraine may launch some 1 or 2 drones into Russian territories. Yes, it is war. But the bottom line here is, it will be very, very difficult for the Ukrainians to actually go deeper into Russia and capture Russian territories. The only part they can strike is around the borders. For example, like Kursk, Belgorod, Crimea. These are the places they can strike. Look, even Kursk operation, the Russians took Kursk back in no time. So once again, Zelenskyy rejected this whole idea of giving up the whole of Donbass to the Russians. By the way, during the Alaska summit, when this issue came up, Zelenskyy rejected, and once again he's rejecting again. But this time around, Zelenskyy said he's ready to give the territories that Russia has already captured to the Russians. So Russia will remain wherever they are today. Oh, Vladimir, you brought all these problems upon yourself. Even if Russia is to take whatever they've taken today, what did Ukraine get out of this war? And this is what I've been saying. The real winners of this war is America and Russia. Today, Ukraine have no option than to give their resources to America. Russia, even if they are to remain wherever they are today, remember the whole of Crimea, a lot of territories. Russia will have a lot of territories in abundance if they are to even remain where they are today. Remember the beginning of the war, Putin said he was ready to give all these territories to the Ukrainians. He was not interested in taking any territory of Ukraine. But in return, Ukraine should just give autonomy to the ethnic Russian speakers. Because, remember during Poroshenko era, they started attacking the ethnic Russian speakers in Ukraine, and Zelenskyy also continued. Whatever Putin was asking for is stop attacking the ethnic Russians. That was all. The only part that Putin was not ready to give to the Ukrainians was Crimea. And anybody who is familiar with the history of Crimea, you understand that Crimea has always been strategically important to the Russians. Russia has been invaded multiple times through Crimea. So giving Crimea to the Ukrainians was not something Putin was ready to do. But the whole of the Luhansk and Donetsk Oblast, wherever they are debating over today, Putin was not interested. So you see why it made sense, perfect sense, for the Ukrainians to have agreed to Putin demands even before this war started. Now you are ready to give wherever the Russians have taken to them. So at the end of the day, what did you gain out of this war? What exactly? So during Trump interview with Fox News, he made it clear that it is quite obvious that Putin and Russia would definitely take something they fought for. So meaning both America and Russia today share the same view. So who is the loser here? I mean, this war should have never started in the first place. And NATO General Secretary Rutte also made it clear that Ukraine cannot fight without the support of America. He said, without the support of American weapons, it is totally impossible for the Ukrainians to fight. And he also urged Western European countries to prepare for more money. According to him, around, I think, $15 billion? $15 billion or 15 billion euros. I stand to be corrected. He said around 15 billion is it dollars or euros. So Western Europeans should prepare for that money if Ukraine is to continue fighting. Really? Isn't all this same? You see, the inconsistency of this NATO General Secretary, I don't get it. This was the same guy who said Russia has achieved nothing. So Russia is not a big threat. And here we are, this same guy is making different statements. By the way, let's put away this NATO General Secretary issue aside. I don't think I have to waste more time on him. This guy is inconsistent. He continued to make statements which contradict each other. Thank you very much for watching this video once again. I don't know how to thank you guys, but words alone can't describe my appreciation for you guys. We started this platform just 2 months ago, but your love and support has brought us this far. We are still far from where we want to go, but we've also made some progress. So we have to appreciate our current state in order to get to where we want to get to. Thank you very much once again for your endless support. Shalom. See you guys in the next episode.